All right, Jim, our next question sent via email to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Sheila Grunwald in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Grunwald?
It's always astounded me how much you put down Hulk Hogan every chance you get. Along with Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan has revolutionized the wrestling business. Has he not? Sure, there are other more talented in-ring workers and better promos, but when it comes down to it, no one tops Hogan in terms of all-around influence. I understand he has done some questionable things in the past, but it doesn't take away from what he has given to the business of pro wrestling. So why don't you, Jim and Brian, give Hogan all the credit he deserves instead of constantly bashing him?
We have given him credit that he deserves. He's one of the biggest gate attractions in the history of wrestling. He was the guy in the 80s. And I've mentioned earlier in the program, compared to the Ultimate Warrior, Hogan could work. Just not well. He wasn't a big bumper. But the only thing that we've ever taken Hogan to task about is the obvious, that he lies like Donald fucking Trump. He's the most exaggerating, fabricating, outright fucking out of thin air bullshit. Remember in his book, he said he wrestled 400 times a year because when he would fly back from Japan, he'd cross the international date line and wrestle twice in the same day.
Remember when he said Metallica wanted him to be their bass player?
Yes. Remember when he said anything he's ever said? And that's why I've always said he's Hulk Hogan. He was already the biggest star in the business. He's already been in movies. He's already a cultural icon of some description. You don't need to keep exaggerating and lying. And remember that just in the show, the Savage hit piece that they did, where he said, yeah, I started all the wrestlers moving to Tampa. Yeah, when you were a fucking bass player in a bar band and all the wrestlers lived there because that was the goddamn seat of the territory.
Remember when he said that the only reason it was a George Foreman grill was because he missed the phone call from the grill people?
Yeah, he called him first, and he missed it, so Foreman got it. There's something about, I expect any day, thing was, I was going to take that day off, but it was Sunday and God was resting, so I went ahead and fucking turned the lights on or whatever. I mean, it's insane. That's what we give him the shit for, because he's full of shit as a Christmas turkey. As Mama Cornette would say, he's so full of shit, his eyes are brown. He just exaggerates, lies, and or fabricates
easily
some really ridiculous stuff.
Very easily. It doesn't seem like there's any effort involved. It just, he starts talking, and at some point you're like, okay, and then it's like, whoa,
yeah,
he's just saying stuff now.
So that's what we give him shit for.
Remember he body slammed Andre, and then Andre died days later? Remember that one?
Well, and they were still telling the deal of, and how did this get in the Warrior piece? By the way, we forgot about that because they did the side tangent of, Andre and Hogan or whatever, but they're still telling the story that they weren't sure what Andre was going to do. And, he probably avoided Hogan in the locker room because he wanted to fucking play cards. And how long do you need to talk about that match? It's a body slam and a leg drop. Right? And it's Andre. He didn't give, but there was never any Andre ain't going to do the job. And I guarantee you, he didn't call the slam on the sperm of the moment. That was the finish all along. Slam, leg drop. But so that's the thing. You can't believe anything that Hulk Hogan says.
But you're not bashing him in terms of his place historically in wrestling history.
No, and I've said I was always a Flair guy. Like Flair said, when Hogan was already out of the shower and back at the hotel bar, he was still in the fucking ring. I didn't like Hulk Hogan's matches for the most part because he didn't put a lot of fucking effort into them. It was all sizzle and no steak. That's what Vince liked. In Japan, he showed what he could do a bit. But as far as him and Flair was my guy. Flair was my world champion. That's a world champion of professional wrestling. Hulk Hogan can say his prayers and eat his vitamins. But yes, he was a big fucking megastar. And God, can you imagine if you could find a Hulk Hogan today that would tower over these children, that could fucking go out there and talk to people and get them involved and then fucking slay some fucking monsters? It maybe that would rejuvenate the business. I can't think of what else might.
Hey, here's a question for you, because you mentioned a Hulk Hogan to go out there and talk to the people. What do you think is more effective, Hulk Hogan's promos in 1983 in the AWA or Hulk Hogan's promos in the late 80s WWF? Because it definitely changed. It became more theatrical and screaming. But in 83, he got that entire fucking state of Minnesota behind him.
Yeah, no, well, 83 was better because it was before he jumped the shark and went over the top. Once he got up to Fantasyland. The earlier stuff, he was still wrestling. He hadn't had Vince telling him the word sports entertainment in his ear all the time. But the promos that get you over and the matches that get you over when you're not over and suddenly you get over because of those things are usually better than the ones you do later on when you're already over. He was becoming more of a parody of wrestling and a parody of himself with the brother and all this shit and the blah, 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 because that's the way Vince was going. And Warrior having those stroke interviews, but Hogan was already over at that point. As a matter of fact, you could argue that from 1989, 1990 for the next couple of years, he got less over instead of more over.
Yeah. No, I think from 89, I think there is a line from No Holds Barred right around the same time the Warrior became the biggest thing with kids my age. 1989, the Warrior feuding with Rick Rude and Bobby Heenan, which means the Heenan family. Haku, eventually Andre the Giant, even Tully and Arn are in the mix. That's the Warrior's feud every week. Meanwhile, you're seeing Hogan footage of him on the set and clips of him and Zeus. And then Zeus is there and Zeus is going to wrestle. Hogan started losing popularity with me and my friends right there. And the Warrior was all we cared about. And that was why Hogan, he started changing. He wasn't the Hogan he had been a few years earlier.
And is a little more Hollywood.
A lot more Hollywood.
So, I would say that would be the case. So I would prefer the earlier Hogan because that's what was getting him over.